Okay, welcome everybody. Before we start and introduce ourselves, we just heard that you're all learners here, so especially those four here. So we would like to ask you to ask you to shortly fill in the Menti 3 questions. We haven't done that today, so shortly, please fill in. Use either the code or go to menti.com and answer the 3 questions about the use of online or digital tools in your courses. Okay, I think we're sufficiently on our way with this. We'll get back to this later. First, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Esther Schagen. I'm a senior lecturer Communication Science here at the VU. And I have the pleasure to teach Nathan, who I brought with me today.
Hi, I'm Nathan, and I'm here to do your favorite thing. I think the favorite thing in every professional's life, an unqualified person telling them how to do their job. So, what are we going to talk about? We're going to basically try to explore together with you the hidden conditions that the students that everyone is teaching need to experience before they can actually successfully use the digital tools you're implementing. And this is mainly done from a student's point of view, and we're of course going to talk about some theory, and we will try to give some examples from our own experiences. So I think we can all remember the beautiful days of online teaching. It was great fun for everyone, but I'm afraid there was quite a bit of a lack of social cohesion within the student body. I cannot say from experience how it was in the teacher department, but I don't think it was a lot better. There was, however, there were a few positive points. Firstly, a lot of steps were made in the efficiency between student and teacher time. A lot of things that were initially all in class turned out to actually be possible online. And together with this, the active blended learning gained a boost, and together with that, the online tools.
Yes, so we saw a development in the tools or digital tools, online tools that are available to us, and they become more and more advanced. For example, we saw a lot of examples today that learning processes are actually integrated in these tools, not just single activities. And by this, we have the possibility to create a more optimal blended environment, seeing what can be online and what can be offline. There is a downfall, I believe, and that is that for me, in my experience, we can get a kind of false sense of security. Like if the tool takes over the process, the student is actually supported enough to go through that process. So that can be a downside, and actually we also experienced that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So we have in our course of Communication Science Bachelor course, we have project courses take a whole semester, and they are focused on academic skills. Because we take a student-centered approach, of course, as all we do here now, peer review is something that is very important for us, for our students to know and to learn. Since teacher and student time is precious, and we learned from the pandemic that the peer review activities, that a lot of things can be been done online, we thought it would be good to use the peer review activities as an online assignment out of a classroom, so an asynchronous assignment. And because FeedbackFruits offers a very, very substantive process, I thought, okay, so my work here is done. And I was really happy because I, ticked all the boxes, online, offline, blended, cool, okay, and we have a nice tool and they can do it self, and it was great, right, Nathan?
No, I'm afraid not.
Oh.
Yeah, the reality is a little bit worse. I was actually one of the people that was introduced to this system. And what actually happened was I was sitting behind my screen at home, looking at a bunch of text and a deadline saying you need to do this before then, and you need to look at this text by someone else, this text by someone else, and you give them a grade and a little bit of a comment. And I thought, okay, I don't care. Let me get this deadline over real quick and get on with my life. And I can give you 3 guesses how many people also didn't read the text.
I think we only need 1 guess. Since students and teachers were a little bit frustrated by this lack of engagement, I promised Nathan if he would help me, I would do better next year. So we kind of got together as co-creators, staring at each other like, okay, you're a co-creator, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Okay, but in the end, it succeeded, and so the next year we were still using FeedbackFruits because it's a cool program and it really works for the peer review. But we did it the first time we did the activity of giving peer review. We did it in class, offline. So we discussed why peer review is important. We showed them with a video made by our Center of Teaching and Learning how you can properly give feedback. And we individually then worked in FeedbackFruits in class all together. And then we discussed afterwards with the teacher what the added value was. And guess what? Hey, that better, right? Yeah. So a lot of students thought that receiving and giving feedback was helpful. So when we look at strongly agree and fairly agree, that's more than half. And neutral, because, well, when you're in your first year, you don't want to immediately have an opinion. So we also have a lot of people in neutral. Yeah, and you also talked to a couple of our students, right?
Yeah, I had a focus group this year with some of the students, and they actually, without me priming them, specifically mentioned the class discussing the peer review and how they actually found it really useful, which was really nice to hear.
Yeah. So let's get back to what you just did in the Menti. Actually, I'm not going to look at your answers. It was we're social scientists, so we like a little experiment. So it was a behavioral experiment. And I want to ask you 2 questions. First, what do you think influenced the way you filled it in? Time. Okay, so you thought, what was your conception of that, or your idea? Okay.
There's only 1 word, so I have to type it in quickly, and
yeah,
otherwise
okay.
Maybe it will disappear.
Perfect. So you had an idea of time. Okay. Anybody else?
I think that the questions were more or less built that they were quite suggestive, focused on a certain subject.
Yeah. So the questions
intuitively filling in.
Yeah. Okay. So you had some assumption of what the questions would want you to actually answer. Okay. Perfect. And okay. So if I would ask Monica to send you all the questions up front at home, would you have filled them in differently? Yes? Can you tell me why or how?
I would have thought through more. I would have reflected on what would be my input. Is it a logical answer?
Okay.
Was this
so
really,
you were like overwhelmed by insecurities whether you did the right thing. Okay. That's good. We want our students to be overwhelmed by insecurities anyway. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So thank you for being in this very unethical, because I didn't share with you, experiment. But how come that when we just did a very simple thing, starting the process of using a digital tool in a classroom environment, which all kind of sort of makes sense, but what is the logic or the science behind that? Why does it work so much better than when we give the assignment online immediately?
Yeah, actually people have researched it, weirdly enough. Firstly, a while back, something called the technology acceptance model. For those unfamiliar with it, it's basically describing what causes people to actually use a specific part of technology. And as you can see, perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use are the 2 main precursors to attitudes, which goes into intention to use, which goes into the actual use. However, perceived usefulness is not actually a really well-describing term of what actually you can do about it. So a new research was actually made, and it's called the GetML, I don't know. It's specifically about e-learning and the 5 precursors to the precursors, in which all 5 relate to perceived ease of use, and the top 4 relate to perceived usefulness. We are currently focusing on the perceived usefulness and its 4 precursors. And the first one I'm going to talk about is the subjective norm. For those unaware, subjective norm is basically about what you think other people think about a specific thing. So if I think everyone in this classroom has the opinion that FeedbackFruits is a really great program, there's a higher chance I'm going to attach some value to it as well. And it goes the other way around as well. Remember when I talked about being behind my screen at home? I thought no one cares about this assignment, so I don't need to care about this assignment either. And then I didn't find it as useful. Same thing goes for self-efficacy. If self-efficacy is about believing in yourself to do something and also believing in yourself to do something the right way. If I think I am not able to do something, I don't think it's very useful, and the other way around. If I'm very much confident and able to do something, I will also see the use more easily.
Yes, and combined with, I studied a little bit these different technology acceptance models. There are a lot of them, but I got triggered by a conference we had last year. It was our EPIC conference here in the Netherlands about Dutch higher education and digital learning. And the main speaker there was Adam Finkelstein, who's Associate Director of Learning Environments at McGill. And he talked about the influence of space on learning. Space creates expectations of behavior, suggests how to act, communicates what is valued. Maybe you had a sense of, I need to be quick because we are here waiting for you to have filled it in, right? So there's this setting already make you listening to me. I'm in the spotlight here, so I might have something interesting to say. Hopefully. So that's what it, and what he also brought up was an example in the field of instructional proxemics. I don't know if you've heard of it. The example he brought up was a research by Perkins and Wieman, and it was about seating in class. And they did a research on a big lecture hall, and they randomly seated the students. And the students who were sitting in the social space, in proxemics we have different space distances, the students who were sitting in the social space of the instructor, they were actually more engaged and had a higher course outcome than the students in the back. And they were randomly assigned, right? So they didn't choose freely to where to sit. And the fun thing is that midterm they changed the groups. So the groups that were sitting in the front went to sit in the back, but the initial outcome of being more engaged and having higher study outcome actually prolonged. So it stayed even when they got back to the back. So that's interesting, right? So these two combined made us think that being in a space, in a room that gives you a learning nudge, and being close to either your peers or your instructors have influence, which is also, I think, backed up by the technology acceptance model.
Yeah. So if we look back at the case where we introduced in live class, we assume, we cannot know, sadly, that we were able to influence the subjective norm, which we were talking about in the technology acceptance model, by using the social space and having the physical learning environment. If everyone in the class is actively working on the assignment, you will think it's more important. And we were able to enhance the perception of self-efficacy because you can ask your peers and ask your teacher about how to do one specific part that you're unable to do, or if you don't understand a certain instruction, you don't need to wrap your head around it by yourself. And of course, gaining some experience by doing it together. And this led to a higher acceptance of the use of the tool and a higher involvement in the development of giving and receiving peer feedback. And the most important part, there is longevity with this as well. Later in the year with a new course, the same skills they were taught in class and by the online model, they kept using and were using appropriately outside of those tools and the class. So to sum it up, properly introducing the online or digital tool in offline learning environment can lead to a higher student engagement and acceptance, the better developed peer review skills, less teaching time spent on formative assessment grading. Yeah, those great things. And we hope we have showed you how extra attention offline in the adoption phase of integrating online and digital tools can have positive effects on the learning process.
That's it.
That's it.